Hi, Misha here, and I know Carcanos, really a lot of old bolt actions aren't of supreme interest, but I still have an interesting variant here to talk about. As the title suggests, the M38 Cavalry Carbine in 7.35 millimeter. Also, hey, joke's on those people that didn't even click on this video. We'll give you a free product code for, I don't know, a free AK. How about that? Okay, not really, of course. But either way, I don't know. This came in. It's unique. Let's talk about it. Why not? Originally, and for many decades, the Carcano was chambered for 6.5 by 52. Actually, quite an advanced little projectile when first adopted in 1891. And then it was further enhanced in 1896, so on and so forth. Well, that's kind of what they went with through World War I, but through various conflicts in Africa, especially Ethiopia in 1935, they decided they wanted to go to a larger, more effective projectile. Not an uncommon thing. The Japanese went through something similar. But they did not want to have to rework the action here. So they studied just how much they could enlarge the projectile while keeping pretty much everything else the same. And they came up with 7.35 by 51, also just sometimes known as 7.3. So a nominal 30 caliber bullet, although on the small end of things. And along with it, they produced a new pattern of rifle, the M38 here. Now, before, of course, they had a 31-inch infantry rifle, and they had carbines with 17.7-inch barrels. But they really discovered that short was good, and so they standardized on nominally what was a short rifle. Others might call a carbine, with about a 20.5-inch barrel, much like the Mosin M38. They also went to this new pattern of folding bayonet, and they went to a fixed rear sight. They felt that adjustable rear sights were just not really worthwhile. They went to side sling mounts as standard and trapdoor in the buttstock for a cleaning rod. So that was the M38 short rifle. And these were only produced from 1938 into 39 and were canceled in 1940 because, well, logistics, Italy. They were basically dropping the 7.3 cartridge. They just couldn't handle production, plus there was ammunition issues. So the M38 in 7.3 is not a common rifle. And about 94,000 were actually sent to Finland, and many we have in America today are from there, imported by Interarms. Not common here, but what about a carbine chambered for that cartridge? Well, these are downright rare. Originally, the Carcano was adopted as a long infantry rifle in 1891 and was in limited production within a few years and started to see widespread issue by the 20th century. But just a year or two after, they worked on a short carbine for cavalry. Adopted in 1893, it had a 17.7-inch barrel, folding bayonet, meant to save on weight, severely chopped back forestock, shorter range adjustable rear sight out to 1,500 meters, and stored its cleaning rod in the buttstock. It was actually a very light little gun. Depending on which exact variant, it hovers right around 7 pounds, plus or minus a few ounces. Uses the same Carcano action, and was very popular in World War I, and production continued up until 1918, and was suspended. But once Mussolini took over and Italy started having campaigns in the colonies, Cavalry Carbine production was started back up in 1932. And these would still be M91s, even though they would start going to the round shank versus the original hex style. But in 1938, we would go to the 7.3 version. But again, they would only produce these for a couple of years. And estimates are that about 200,000 of the 38 in this chambering were ever built. But that wouldn't last long, of course. But it would be carried over, namely the fixed rear sight, to what we know as the M91 38. The same gun, but going back to using 6.5 millimeter. And they would continue producing these up until 1944. Well, I should say most factories did. Some did continue, well, some, by that I mean Russia, the version with the adjustable rear sight till the end. So they did continue to make them with the original pattern sight for a time. But that makes the 7.3 a pretty uncommon and rare bird, even if it's just the caliber. And just because it looks cool, here we are with bayonets fixed. The idea behind the bayonet with the Cavalry Carbine, it was almost an auxiliary weapon. The cavalry troopers had sabers. Again, you can see the same with the Japanese Type 44 Arisaka. Same principle. And this housing would change a few times. These are all push button. There's a lever version that I've shown you in the past. And the one on the 38 is the same as the others, except behind the front sight, it actually is inlet just a little bit for the new caliber, what have you. Little step down behind the sight. Otherwise, looks the same. And turn down bolt handles on all of these. It's worth pointing out they started having to mark the rear sights, especially when they went to 6.5 again, to designate the caliber. Some sources claim that they rebarreled 7.3s to 6.5. This is erroneous. If they were already built in 7.3, they stayed in 7.3. But the Cavalry Carbine was very popular. It's estimated that about 1.6 million in 6.5 were produced. So, proportionally, very few in 7.3. I don't know. I've always found this to kind of be an iconic Carcano. Unique design. And again, just because bayonets are fun, here we are with the 38 short rifles deployed. Obviously, it's a blade type here. And funnily enough, the Cavalry Carbines has a slightly longer reach, even though its barrel is nearly 3 inches shorter. Interesting bayonet on the 38 here. It's detachable, of course. Going to switch it down just to get my hand. And what I always thought was neat was the folding mechanism, the button, the way it works is actually very similar to how the Cavalry Carbine works, by pressing it in. If I can do it here wrong-handedly, pulling it out and then snapping it back into place. Of course, again, there are several styles of folding assembly. This is far from the only one, although for the 38s, I don't know if they had time to make many variations there. Otherwise, standard Carcano, bolt action. Nothing really changed much with the larger caliber. That was kind of the point. Typical Carcano disassembly. Standard bolt. Standard Mannlicher style clips. And it uses what I always thought was really neat, these rolling sling swivels to keep it from binding up. But yeah, I just wanted to show you something that doesn't come around every day. And this one's in pretty good shape considering how many of these look. Yeah, the Cavalry Carbine, a little bit shorter, quite a bit lighter because of its construction, especially bayonet to bayonet, both being attached. Of course, this too retains the cleaning rod, and the buttstock is a two-piece affair that screws together. And they never would do a hex version of this, but the time the 38 came out, that was it. And they were all fixed sights. Some sent to Finland had their front sights modified for different ranges. They weren't very popular in Finland, and they weren't popular in Italy, but more because they caused logistical issues. And 7.3, while it delivered a little more oomph, manufacturing quality of the ammo was hit or miss, inconsistent groups, kind of loose groups. But it wasn't the rifle's fault, it was more of the ammunition, how it was loaded, how it was manufactured fault. They did make a grenade launching version of these, at least in 6.5, but they didn't really go much of anywhere. And they also did a version in 8mm Mauser 7.9, known as 38S. And a lot of those ended up in post-war Egypt and were used for training. Like I said, I know Carcanos aren't the coolest thing, but I've always thought they were interesting, and I just wanted to show you this one. It just came in the store. So I do appreciate you sticking with me, those that did. If you do own one of these, I'd love to hear about it down below. And as always, if you please could like, share, subscribe. And if you'd like to help out, please check out the Patreon channel, link below. This is Misha, and I'll try to come up with something more modern and exciting next time. Thank you very much.